You see, the greatest mistake most of us make is imagining that God is somewhere else, up in the sky in a temple or beyond the stars. We walk through life as though the divine were a distant monarch, watching us from afar, judging, withholding, waiting. But what if that were the illusion? What if God was not out there, but in here, woven into the very fabric of your being? What if you lived not in search of God, but as if he were already within you? Not as a metaphor, not as a poetic idea, but as a truth so immediate it breathes when you breathe, it moves when you move. To act as if God is within you is not arrogance, it is alignment. And when you align with that presence, everything changes. The fear dissolves, the striving ends, and you become not a seeker of light, but a radiator of it. Let me know if you'd like the full speech, or want the intro styled differently, E, G, G, more direct, more mystical, or more grounded. You are not separate from the divine. That is the illusion we have bought into, the root misunderstanding of our time. You have been told subtly and overtly that God is distant, that he is an old man in the sky with a beard, somewhere up above the clouds, watching and waiting to judge your every move. But this picture is not just childish, it's limiting. Because in holding that image, we place ourselves outside of God's presence, and in doing so we separate ourselves from our own power, our own light, our own center. But what if this idea is not only false, it is the very cause of our suffering? You see, the truth is far stranger and more liberating. You are not separate from God. You are not a guest in this universe. You are an expression of it. You are not merely a servant of the divine. You are the way the divine sees, moves, breathes, and experiences life. You are not outside of the story of God. You are the sentence he is speaking now. Just as a wave is not separate from the ocean, you are not separate from the source that gave you life. To realize this, not just in theory, but in experience, is to wake up from the dream of being alone. Think about it. Every single thing in nature, from the stars to the soil, exists as an extension of something deeper, something unseen. Trees grow not by striving, but by obeying the inner laws of their being. Birds do not attend flying lessons, yet they glide with grace through the sky. The river does not push or pull, it flows, because that is its nature. And so it is with you. Your very breath is a miracle in motion. But we have forgotten this. We've been taught to worship the Creator while doubting the creation. But how can you say you love God if you despise what he made you to be? To believe you are separate from God is like a drop of water believing it is separate from the ocean. You may have a shape, a form, an identity for a moment, but the substance of what you are is not different from the source. When Jesus said, "The kingdom of God is within you," he was not being poetic. He was stating a truth that most of us are too afraid to believe. Because if God is within, then we are not just followers, we are carriers. And that is a responsibility. It means that your life is not something random. It is a sacred echo of the divine will. But what blocks us from realizing this is the constant voice in our head telling us we are small, broken, sinful, and unworthy. It is the voice of shame disguised as humility. It is the false modesty that says, "Who am I to carry God within me?" But the real question is, who are you not to? You were born with that spark. It was placed in you long before the world tried to label you, before the trauma, before the fear, before the disappointments, before religion told you to shrink. There was a light in you. And that light has never gone out. It has only been covered. You may say, "But I've made too many mistakes." No. The light doesn't abandon you when you stumble. It becomes the very reason you get back up. God doesn't wait at the finish line. He walks with you in every step. To act as if you are separate from the divine is to pretend you are powerless. But to act as if God is within you, that is the beginning of transformation. Not because you're trying to impress the heavens, but because you are finally walking in alignment with the truth of your being. And when you do, something changes. You start to live differently. You stop seeking validation because you realize the source already lives in you. You stop comparing because there is no need to compete with another when you are complete within yourself. You stop fearing the unknown because you know the one who dwells in you also dwells in the mystery. And so life becomes less of a struggle and more of a dance. The irony is that acting as if God is within you does not make you proud, it humbles you, because you begin to see that the same God in you is in everyone else. It humbles you because it reveals the sacred in all things, even the broken, even the ordinary. It makes you kinder, gentler, more aware. You begin to speak with more care, walk with more reverence, live with more purpose. Not because you are trying to become something, but because you are remembering what you already are. And so let the illusion of separation dissolve. Let the idea that you must climb some spiritual ladder or earn God's nearness fade away. You are already there. The curtain was never real. The distance was always imagined. All you need to do is wake up, to remember, to act not with arrogance, but with the sacred confidence that comes from knowing you were never alone. Because in the silence between your thoughts, in the space behind your heartbeat, in the stillness that remains when everything else falls away, there is a presence. And that presence is not visiting, it is not temporary, it is not partial, it is home. And you are the house in which God has chosen to dwell. So live like it, speak like it, walk like it. Not someday, not if you become perfect, but now, just as you are. Act as if God is within you, and watch how the world responds. The kingdom of God is not out there. It is not hidden in some distant corner of the universe, nor is it suspended in time, waiting for your death to reveal it. No, the kingdom is closer than your breath, more immediate than your heartbeat. It does not belong to the skies or to the afterlife. It belongs to now, to this moment, to the very center of your being. And yet so many spend their lives searching in the wrong direction, turning their gaze outward in hopes of finding something that was never missing in the first place. This is one of the great cosmic jokes, that humanity has been on a pilgrimage not to some mountain, not to some heaven, but back to its own center. We wander far, hoping that in distance or effort we might find divinity. We attend services, seek gurus, read sacred texts, and imagine that God is far away, and maybe, if we are lucky, we might catch a glimpse of him. But the truth, quietly sitting beneath all the noise, is that the divine has never left. The treasure we search for is buried in the field of our own consciousness. You see, the mistake is imagining that God is like a king who must be summoned. But God is not absent. Only your awareness of him is. And awareness is not a matter of knowledge. It's a matter of presence. You don't need more information to find God. You don't need more sermons, more words, more rituals. What you need is stillness. What you need is to stop running from the sacredness that has always been within you. The kingdom of God is not some castle in the clouds. It is the simple, sacred realization that your soul is not empty, but filled with divine presence. But this idea is difficult for the mind to accept, because the ego thrives on effort, on striving, on the belief that it must earn divinity. The mind wants to feel it has accomplished something grand by reaching God, but the soul knows something else. It knows that to return to God is not a journey forward, but a returning inward. And when we stop trying to find God outside of ourselves, something miraculous happens. We begin to recognize Him in the ordinary, in the smile of a stranger, in the rustling of leaves, in the ache of longing, in the laughter of children. Suddenly everything becomes holy, not because it changed, but because you did. This is why Jesus said, "The kingdom of God is within you." Not metaphorically, not symbolically, but actually. The doorway to the infinite is not locked, it's just ignored. We've trained ourselves to miss it, distracted by performance, perfectionism, and comparison. But God isn't found in competition. He's found in communion with yourself, with others, with this moment. The kingdom is here now, but we are too often somewhere else, mentally living in a world of worries, regrets, and future plans. When you begin to live from the awareness that the divine resides within, everything softens. You begin to treat yourself differently. You no longer carry shame as a permanent burden, but as a temporary illusion. You no longer strive to impress God, but to express Him through your words and actions. Because when you know the kingdom is within, every act becomes sacred. Brushing your teeth, walking to the store, saying hello to someone. These become moments of divine expression. You realize that nothing is too small to carry holiness. And this realization doesn't make you proud, it makes you reverent. It humbles you. Because you begin to see that if the kingdom is within you, it must also be within them. Even those who hurt you, even those you don't understand, even those you're tempted to judge. You start to see with different eyes, eyes that don't divide the world into good and bad, worthy and unworthy, holy and unholy. You see only souls, each one housing the same mysterious fire that lives. But this awareness must be practiced, not in the sense of doing more, but in the sense of becoming more present. It takes courage to sit with yourself long enough to see the divine flickering beneath your personality, beneath your fears, beneath your conditioning. It takes stillness to hear the quiet voice that has been whispering all along, "I am here, I never lost." You begin to recognize that the kingdom was never lost. It was only buried under layers of noise and distraction. And so, your task is not to climb some spiritual ladder, but to uncover what was always true. You don't need to force open a locked door. You need only to open your eyes. To live as if the kingdom is within you means to trust that God is not just with you, but in you. It means that you walk with a sacred confidence, not arrogance, but a knowing that your life is not disconnected from the divine source. It is a continuation of it. When this knowing takes root in your life, everything becomes different. You begin to speak more gently because you understand the weight of your words. You begin to forgive more freely because you know what it's like to be seen and loved by something greater. You begin to move with more peace because you are no longer searching, you are remembering. So if you are looking for the kingdom of God, stop looking beyond yourself. Pause. Breathe. Feel the aliveness in your chest, the stillness in your core. That is where He is. Not in the future, not in a temple built by hands, but in you. Always has been, always will be. The kingdom is not coming, the kingdom is not delayed, the kingdom is now, and it is within you. Faith is not believing in something you cannot see. It is living as if what you know in your soul is already true. It is not wishful thinking, nor blind trust in the unseen. Real faith is embodiment. It is the quiet decision to walk in alignment with a truth that may not yet have unfolded in front of your eyes, but which has already taken root deep within your being. This is the power of living as if you are already whole, as if you are already guided, as if the light you seek is not somewhere ahead, but rising from within. We often confuse faith with hope. Hope says maybe one day something good will happen, but faith says it is already happening. I just haven't seen the full picture yet. Hope looks toward the horizon. Faith walks toward it without needing to see the path fully laid out. The world around you may not change immediately. The situation might still be complicated. The storm might still be raging. But the moment you act from faith, the moment you choose to live as if the divine presence is real and active within you, something inside shifts. And that shift is what moves everything else. You see, most people wait for proof before they believe. They wait for the healing to begin before they declare that they're whole. They wait for the opportunity to arrive before they feel ready. They wait for the voice of God to thunder before they start walking in purpose. But that's not how life responds. Life bends to your conviction. It echoes back your certainty. When you act in alignment with a higher truth, even before the evidence appears, you set spiritual laws in motion that are far more powerful than effort or willpower. This is not about pretending. It's not about faking strength or masking your fear. It's about standing in the knowing that there is a deeper current guiding you, even when your mind can't comprehend it. It's trusting the blueprint written into your soul. Acting as if God is within you means you trust the inner whisper more than the outer noise. It means you choose love even when fear shouts louder. It means you walk in peace even when chaos demands your attention. When you live this way, your life begins to transform, not because God suddenly shows up, but because you finally aligned with the truth that He never left. The moment you stop waiting for permission to feel blessed, you begin to see the blessings already surrounding you. The moment you stop asking for a sign, you realize that your very breath is one. The act of faith is not about moving mountains. It is about removing the illusion that there are mountains in the first place. What you thought were obstacles were often only doubts in disguise. This is what separates those who live from spirit and those who live from circumstance. The spiritually awake don't ignore reality, they transcend it. They understand that faith is not dependent on outcomes. It is a state of being. You don't need to see the finish line to run the race. You don't need to know how it will all unfold to take the next step. The step is the proof. The movement is the evidence. When you walk forward with open hands and a trusting heart, you declare to the universe that you are ready. And the universe, in time, responds. The old self says, "I'll believe it when I see it." The awakened self says, "I'll see it because I believe it." Not because belief creates a fantasy, but because belief shapes perception, and perception shapes experience. When you act as if God is within you, you begin to see life differently. You don't fear delays because you know divine timing cannot be rushed. You don't fear rejection because you know that what's meant for you will find you. You don't shrink from challenges because you know your strength isn't yours alone. It is the force of something much greater expressing itself through you. There is a beauty in living this way, a sacred freedom. You no longer live based on how things appear. You no longer base your joy on whether everything is going your way. You become rooted in something deeper, something unshakable. You carry a quiet authority, not loud, not showy, but undeniable, because you have tasted truth. And once you've tasted truth, the illusions lose their power. But it requires practice. Not the kind of practice that wears you out, but the kind that wakes you up, a daily remembering. A quiet affirmation, even if I can't see the whole plan, I will walk in it. Even if I don't feel perfect, I will live as if I am whole. Even if I feel alone, I will act as if I am divinely supported, because I am. You begin to understand that your actions are not based on how you feel, but on who you are. And who you are is not defined by your past or your circumstances. It is defined by the spark of God within you. So the next time doubt rises, pause, breathe, and act anyway. Not recklessly, not blindly, but with the steady grace of one who knows they are not walking alone. Each step you take in faith becomes a seed, and eventually those seeds bloom into realities that no amount of fear could have ever produced. You don't need the whole map, just the courage to take the next step with the belief that the path will appear beneath your feet. Act as if God is within you. Speak as if your words carry divine power. Move as if your presence is healing. Create as if your gifts are sacred. Live as if your very existence is a miracle, because it is. And faith, true faith, is choosing to live from that truth even when the world has yet to catch up. Your every act is a sacred expression. Whether you realize it or not, each breath you take, each thought you form, each word you speak is a ripple of something eternal moving through time. You are not just a body acting in the world, you are an instrument of something far greater. And the way you live, the choices you make, the energy you bring into a room, they are all silent prayers. They are offerings. And when you act as if God is within you, every movement becomes a liturgy, every moment becomes a temple. There is no such thing as ordinary when you understand the divine nature of presence. Washing dishes is no longer a chore, it is a meditation. Walking down the street is not an aimless motion, it is a sacred pilgrimage. Sitting quietly with someone in pain is no longer awkward silence, it is holy communion. When you embody the truth that God is not separate from you, you begin to treat the moments of your life as sacred ground. You begin to live with reverence, not only in the grand events, but in the quiet, mundane spaces that make up most of your days. Most people wait for a special occasion to be mindful, to be grateful, to be kind. But sacredness doesn't wait for ceremony. It lives in the now. The smallest gesture done with love carries more divine weight than the grandest act performed with ego. You do not need to wait for a spotlight to begin radiating the light within you. You do not need permission to become the vessel you already are. When you speak with compassion, you are not simply being nice. You are allowing the voice of God to echo through you. When you forgive, you are not just letting go. You are performing an act of divine liberation. We often underestimate the power of our presence. We think of the spiritual life as something reserved for monks, priests, or mystics, but the truth is every person, no matter their role, holds the ability to channel the sacred through the way they live. You don't need to change the world in dramatic ways to be a beacon of light. You only need to be present where you are and live from the truth that what you do matters, not because of how others see it, but because of the spirit behind it. There is a subtle energy that flows from you when you begin to live this way. People may not be able to describe it, but they feel it. A kind of quiet power, a peace that isn't tied to outcomes. When you walk into a room with the awareness that God is in you, you don't have to announce it. You carry a presence that speaks without words. You listen differently. You see people, not just their behavior, but their essence, and in doing so you remind them of who they are, simply by being who you are. This sacred expression isn't about performance, it's about authenticity. It's not about trying to be holy, it's about remembering that you already are. Not because of your perfection, but because of your connection. You are not sacred because you're flawless. You are sacred because you are a vessel of the divine. And when you truly grasp this, you begin to shed the need to impress anyone. You don't act from obligation. You act from overflow. You don't serve to earn love. You serve because you are filled with love that naturally wants to pour out. And this does something extraordinary to the way you move through suffering. When hardship comes, and it will, you begin to face it differently. You stop asking, why is this happening to me, and start asking, what is being revealed through this? You realize that even your pain can become a sacred expression. Even your tears carry prayers. Even your silence is filled with holy echoes. Nothing is wasted when seen through the lens of the divine. Every fragment of your life, even the broken pieces, becomes part of the mosaic of sacredness. This way of living also brings you into deeper alignment with your purpose, because when you act as if God is within you, you begin to filter your choices through a different lens. You stop chasing things that are shiny but empty. You begin to care less about how things look and more about how they feel. You choose paths that nourish your soul, not just your image. You find yourself drawn to what is real, what is lasting, what resonates with truth. Your actions start to match the rhythm of your spirit, and in that harmony you find a joy the world cannot touch. To live as though your every act is sacred is to treat yourself and others with unshakable dignity. It means that you stop rushing past life and begin to savor it. You speak more slowly. You listen more deeply. You love more freely. And in doing so, you become a living sanctuary, not one made of stone and stained glass, but one made of presence and compassion. You become the space where people can breathe, where they can feel safe, where they can remember their own divinity just by standing in the glow of yours. This is what it means to be a vessel. This is what it means to walk in alignment with the divine. Not to escape the world, but to see it rightly. Not to become something more, but to remember that you already carry everything you need. When you live from that truth, your life becomes a continual act of worship, not in the form of ritual, but in the form of awareness. You become the prayer. You become the song. You become the message. So don't wait for a holy day or a sign from heaven. The moment is already sacred, and so are you. Live like it. Let your every act, big or small, be touched by love, guided by presence, and rooted in the knowing that God is not somewhere else, but right here, flowing through you. Fear melts in the light of inner divinity, not because fear is weak, but because it cannot survive where truth is fully embraced. Fear is a shadow, a ghost made of doubt, illusion, and separation. It feeds on the belief that you are alone, small, and helpless. It thrives in the absence of awareness, but the moment you begin to act as if God is within you, the power that once belonged to fear begins to dissolve, not because the challenges vanish, but because you no longer face them as a fragmented being. You face them as one who is deeply connected to something infinite. When you understand that the divine lives in you, fear loses its edge. It still knocks on your door, but it doesn't enter. It may whisper, but you no longer obey its voice. Because something louder, something more ancient and enduring begins to rise within you. It is the voice of your true self, the echo of the eternal that has been speaking all along, waiting for you to listen. And when you finally tune in, when you begin to believe not just in God, but in God in you, fear becomes something you can walk beside without being ruled by. Most of our fear comes from the illusion of separation. We think we are separate from God, from purpose, from protection, and so we live on edge, always waiting for something to go wrong. We try to control everything because we've forgotten the deeper order at work beneath the surface of things. But when you remember that you are not just walking with God, you are carrying God within, you begin to trust differently. You begin to breathe deeper. You begin to act not from panic, but from peace. This doesn't mean you won't feel afraid. It means fear no longer gets the final word. You start to recognize it for what it is, a signal, not a sentence. You see it rise and you acknowledge it, but you don't bow to it. Instead, you return to your center. You remember that the light inside you is older than your problems, stronger than your confusion, wiser than your questions. The presence of the divine in you is not something that flickers with emotion or circumstance. It is constant. It is still. It is there, whether you feel it or not. To live as if God is within you is to live in a state of courageous surrender. Not the kind of surrender that means giving up, but the kind that means letting go of the illusion that you were ever doing it all alone. You surrender the grip of fear and step into trust. Not passive trust, but active trust. You make decisions rooted in peace. You speak words that align with love, even when your voice shakes. You take steps forward, even when the path isn't fully clear, because you know the one walking with you is also walking as you. This shift in awareness transforms your whole experience of life. You no longer need everything to be certain before you act. You no longer need guarantees. Because your security doesn't come from the outside, it flows from within. It's not that life becomes easier, but that you become anchored. And when you are anchored in the presence of God within you, the storms may rage around you, but they do not capsize you. You stand firm not because of your strength alone, but because of the strength that flows through you. This is how fear is melted, not by fighting it, but by turning on the light. You don't defeat darkness by struggling with it. You dissolve it by being the light that you are. And the more you act from that inner light, the more clearly you see. You see that most of the things you once feared were echoes of old stories, unexamined beliefs, and conditioned responses. You see how much energy you gave to shadows that had no substance. And in that seeing, you are freed. You begin to live differently. You don't shrink yourself to make others comfortable. You don't stay silent when your soul is urging you to speak. You stop negotiating with fear and start aligning with truth. Even your body responds. There's a calmness in your breath, a steadiness in your walk, a quiet confidence that doesn't need to announce itself. Because you know, not just intellectually but experientially, that you are not empty, you are filled. Filled with light, with love, with divine intelligence. You may still encounter uncertainty, but now you meet it with grace. You may still face loss, but now you walk through it with presence. You may still be misunderstood, but now you're rooted in the understanding that your worth is not up for debate. You are no longer living for approval. You are living from alignment. And that alignment dissolves fear before it can take hold. You start to realize that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing love despite it. It's choosing truth despite the unknown. It's choosing to act as if God is within you, even on the days you feel furthest from him. This kind of living becomes a quiet revolution, not loud, not dramatic, but steady and unshakable. You become a presence of peace in a world addicted to anxiety. You become an anchor for others, not because you have all the answers, but because you live from the source that knows all. You shine, not to be seen, but because shining is simply what happens when you stop hiding. So let the fear come. Let it rise, but don't let it lead. Let it speak, but don't let it dictate your steps. Return always to the truth. You are not separate. You are not abandoned. You are not powerless. The same divine essence that breathes stars into existence breathes in you now. And that truth, that living, breathing truth, is stronger than fear has ever been. Act as if God is within you. and you will find that fear begins to lose interest in a soul that knows who it really is. You become the answer to your own prayers the moment you stop waiting for something outside of you to change and start recognizing the divine power already within. We often pray with the idea that help is coming from far away, as if God is a distant force that needs to be persuaded or convinced to intervene. But what if prayer is not a request to an external being, but a deep remembering of your own divine nature? What if the change you're waiting for has already begun the moment you shift your awareness inward and act as though God truly dwells within you? We've been conditioned to look up when we feel broken, to look around when we feel lost, to look forward when we feel unsure, but rarely are we taught to look within. Yet that's exactly where the answer lies. When you begin to live as if God is within you, not symbolically but literally, you begin to understand that you are not a beggar asking for grace. You are the vessel through which grace flows. You are not asking for power. You are being called to remember that power already planted in you from the beginning. So many of the things we pray for, strength, wisdom, courage, peace, are not things we lack. They are things we've buried, ignored, or doubted. But they are there, they are alive inside of you right now, waiting to be activated. And they don't require divine lightning from above to spark them. They require recognition. They require trust. They require the audacity to say, I am not just made by God, I am made of God. When that realization moves from the mind into the heart, into the body, into your decisions, your entire life begins to align. We keep waiting for God to show up in a dramatic way. We say, if I had a sign, I would move. If I had proof, I would believe. If I had clarity, I would act. But God doesn't always speak through thunder. Most of the time, he whispers through your own intuition, through your own longings, through that still small voice that keeps nudging you toward truth. That whisper is not separate from God. It is God. And when you finally stop dismissing it, when you begin to trust that God can and does move through you, you stop waiting for miracles and realize you become one. The prayers you send upward are powerful, but their power is not in moving God. It's in waking you up. Every genuine prayer is not just a plea, it's a declaration, a call to become who you were created to be. And when you pray not with desperation, but with confidence that the Spirit of the Creator lives in you, your posture changes. You begin to walk differently, think differently. You stop chasing divine intervention and start becoming divine expression. This is where transformation happens, not when something external shifts, but when you begin to see yourself as a co-creator with God. Your words matter, your energy matters, your choices matter. You are not just waiting on God to do something. God is waiting on you to realize you've already been equipped. The tools are in your hands, the fire is in your chest, the light is in your eyes, and the moment you act from that place, you stop being a seeker of blessings and become a source of them. And this changes how you show up in the world. You stop feeling like a victim of your circumstances and start recognizing the authority you carry. You stop shrinking in rooms that once intimidated you. You stop hesitating when love calls you forward. Because you understand now that you're not just surviving, you're carrying something sacred. Every room you walk into is blessed by your awareness of what's within. Every conversation becomes an opportunity for healing, not because you have the perfect words, but because your presence carries truth. Even your pain, your setbacks, your wounds, they all become part of the answer. Because now you're no longer ashamed of them. You see how they shaped your capacity to love, to understand, to grow. You stop running from your story and start using it as a map for others who are still lost in theirs. This is what it means to become the answer to your own prayers. Not that you become self-sufficient, but that you become God-conscious. Not that you rely only on yourself, but that you no longer see yourself as separate from the one who made you. This realization doesn't lead to pride, it leads to deep humility. Because when you realize the vastness of what lives within you, you cannot help but treat yourself and others with reverence. You begin to see that every soul is carrying that same spark, whether they know it or not, and that awareness softens you. It makes you kinder, more patient, more loving, not from effort, but from overflow. So if you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. If you've been waiting for God to move, consider that He already has, by placing His Spirit in you. If you've been waiting for strength, look again. It's already in your spine, your breath, your being. The waiting ends the moment you stop praying for escape and start praying for embodiment. The moment you stop asking God to remove the mountain and start asking for the courage to climb it. You are not empty. You are not lacking. You are not forgotten. You are not disqualified. You are filled. You are equipped. You are chosen. You are already what you're searching for. And the more you live from that knowing, the more your life becomes a living answer to your prayers, to someone else's, to a world in desperate need of people who remember who they are. Act as if God is within you, not to prove anything, not to impress anyone, but because it's the truth. Because that's how your soul was designed to live. And when you do, you will see that you were never just praying for help. You were praying to awaken the part of you that was always ready to become it. The divine has no ego, neither should you. God does not operate through pride, control, or comparison. He does not compete, does not defend, does not prove. His presence is like the sun, steady, radiant, and unbothered by clouds. And when you begin to live as if God is within you, your ego slowly begins to dissolve in that same light. You no longer feel the need to protect an image, to build a reputation, or to prove your worth to the world, because you begin to know something deeper, something unshakable, that your worth was never up for negotiation to begin with. The ego is the false self. It's the voice in your head that says, I am what I own, I am what I do, I am what others think of me. It clings to control. It fears vulnerability. It thrives on comparison and separation. And yet it is not evil. It is simply mistaken. It has forgotten the truth of your being. When you believe that you are disconnected from God, the ego steps in to protect you. It builds walls, wears masks, chases achievements. It does what it can to make you feel safe and valuable. But what the ego can never understand is that you were already safe. You were already valuable. You were already enough. Long before anyone told you otherwise. To live from the awareness that God is within you is to slowly surrender the ego's grip, not by force, but by clarity. When you recognize that your value comes from being, not from doing, the need to impress dissolves. When you know that the divine lives in everyone, not just in you, the need to compare or feel superior melts away. You begin to live with quiet confidence, not loud pride. You no longer need to win to feel worthy. You no longer need to be right to feel secure. You stop trying to control everything because you trust the deeper current of life. The divine is not anxious. The divine is not reactive. The divine is not insecure. And when you start to embody the truth that God is within you, those qualities begin to fall away from your life. You learn to listen more than speak. You learn to release more than hold. You learn to bless more than judge. This is not weakness. This is power in its truest form. It is the power of a soul so rooted in the eternal that it no longer needs to grasp at fleeting values. And in this way your life begins to reflect divine humility. Not the false humility that belittles or hides, but the sacred humility that recognizes the light in all things. You begin to see others through the eyes of love, not ego. You no longer feel threatened by someone else's success because you understand there is no scarcity in the spirit. What is for you will always be for you, and what is for them does not take from you. So you can celebrate others, you can lift them up. You can give without keeping score. Humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking yourself less. It's shifting your attention from protecting your image to serving your purpose. And when your purpose is to allow God to flow through you, you begin to move differently. You show up not for recognition, but for contribution. You speak not to dominate, but to uplift. You live not to be seen, but to see. You become a mirror of grace, reflecting the light that lives in you to everyone you meet. This transformation is not instant. The ego does not vanish overnight. It rises again and again, especially when you feel afraid or unseen. But with each moment of awareness, with each choice to return to presence, it loosens its grip. You catch yourself before reacting. You pause before defending. You choose love instead of control. And slowly something begins to shift. Your peace becomes less dependent on circumstances. Your joy becomes less fragile. Your relationships deepen, not because everyone else changes, but because you've changed the lens through which you see them. This inner transformation also brings freedom. The freedom to not always be right. The freedom to fail without losing your worth. The freedom to rest without guilt. The freedom to be misunderstood without needing to explain. Because when you know who you are, when you truly believe that God dwells in you, what others think of you loses its power. You stop living as a performer and start living as a presence. You stop chasing approval and start radiating truth, and that truth becomes a gift to others. Because in a world obsessed with status, noise, and appearances, someone who is truly anchored in their spirit is a rare and healing presence. You give others permission to put their masks down, to rest, to breathe, to be real. Your humility becomes contagious. Your lack of ego creates space for others to show up as they are. For this is how the divine expresses itself in the world, not through force, but through love. Not through domination, but through gentle presence. Not through shouting, but through stillness. And when you live as if God is within you, you become part of that expression, not to claim superiority, but to embody sacred unity. You are not here to be above others. You are here to remind them, and yourself, that we are all made of the same divine breath. So let the ego fall away little by little. Let it crumble, not with shame, but with gratitude. It tried to protect you. It tried to make you feel safe. But now you know the truth. You don't need to perform for love. You are love. You don't need to seek approval. You are already approved by the source that made you. Live from that place. Speak from that knowing. Walk with that peace. The divine has no ego. And when you live as if God is within you, neither do you. Only presence. Only purpose. Only peace. And from that place you become a light that doesn't have to shine. It simply does. When you begin to live as if God is within you, you stop waiting for permission to shine. You stop holding back your voice, your creativity, your love, and your power. You no longer wait for the perfect moment, the ideal circumstances, or the validation of others to step into your purpose. You realize with a quiet but profound certainty that the light you carry was never meant to be hidden. It was never meant to be deluded, dimmed, or delayed. It was meant to radiate. Right now, just as you are. There is a deep and tragic lie that many have accepted without questioning, that they must wait until they are more worthy, more healed, more ready, more qualified before they can live fully and freely. This lie keeps people frozen, constantly looking for signs, for approvals, for open doors that already exist within them. But the moment you act as if God is within you, that illusion begins to crumble. You see that you are never meant to wait. You are meant to awaken. God did not plant divine essence in you so it could remain dormant. He placed it there so it could move, create, inspire, serve, and bless. And yet, many sit quietly, trapped by fear, by doubt, by the opinions of others, all while the fire inside them grows restless. That fire is not your ego, it's not ambition. It is the uncontainable force of your soul urging you to express what was placed in you by something higher. And when you live as if God is within you, you stop resisting that force. You stop flowing with it. The truth is, the world needs you to stop playing small. Not in a boastful way, not to dominate or compete, but to fulfill your role in the larger symphony of life. Every time you withhold your light, you withhold a piece of God's presence from the world. Every time you silence your truth, a part of the divine's message goes unheard. You are not here to be invisible. You are not here to simply survive. You are here to carry and communicate the love, wisdom, and energy of the Creator in your own unique way. But this can feel risky, because to truly shine means to be seen. And to be seen can be terrifying if your worth is still tied to what others think. That's why acting as if God is within you is a radical act of faith. It means trusting that you are enough even when others doubt you. It means stepping forward even when your knees shake. It means showing up when it would be easier to hide, because you are no longer acting for applause. You are living from alignment. You are no longer performing, you are embodying. And this embodiment changes everything. You begin to speak with more clarity. You begin to move with intention. You begin to say yes to what resonates with your spirit and no to what drains your soul. You stop chasing opportunities that are not meant for you and begin attracting what truly aligns. You stop trying to prove your worth and begin living from it. And in that space, the divine begins to do what it does best, work through you in ways you never expected. This doesn't mean you will never feel fear again. It means you will stop letting fear dictate your decisions. It doesn't mean you will always have the answers. It means you will trust the source within you to guide each next step. Because when you live from that place, the burden of life begins to feel lighter. Not because everything becomes easy, but because your energy is no longer divided. You are no longer at war with yourself. You are no longer asking permission to be what you already are. And people will feel this. They may not understand it, but they will sense it. There is something magnetic about someone who walks in alignment with their inner divine. You become a lighthouse without even trying. You shine not because you want attention, but because it is your nature. You give others permission to be honest, to be brave, to be themselves, not by instructing them, but by simply living your truth with courage and grace. You were not created to be a carbon copy of someone else. You were not designed to fit a mold. Your quirks, your flaws, your passions, your instincts, they are not random. They are part of your sacred assignment. When you live as if God is within you, you stop apologizing for your authenticity. You begin to honor your own voice. You take up space, not to overpower, but to fully exist, to reflect God in a way that only you can. The world has enough copies. What it needs is the real you. The you who laughs freely, cries openly, loves deeply, speaks honestly, and creates fearlessly. The you who knows you're not here by accident. the you who understands that being fully alive is the greatest offering you can give to God and to others. And that doesn't come from perfection, it comes from presence. So shine, even if your voice trembles, even if your hands shake, even if the world doesn't clap. Shine, because it's what you are made to do. Shine because your light is not just yours. It is a reflection of the one who lives in you. Shine, not for attention, but for alignment, for freedom, for truth. And every time you choose to do so, you honor the presence of God in a world that is desperate to remember Him. Every time you live unapologetically, you remind others they can do the same. You don't just change your life. You become a catalyst for transformation in others. You don't need more time. You don't need more credentials. You don't need someone else to unlock the door. You are the door. You are the light. You are the message. Act like it. Live like it. Shine like it. Because the world isn't waiting for a hero. It's waiting for you to remember who you really are. There comes a moment in your life when you stop trying to become something and start realizing that you already are. That's the quiet turning point. The shift from striving to embodying. You stop chasing after spiritual experiences as if they live outside of you, and begin to live as though the sacred was already pulsing through your breath, your thoughts, your actions, because it is. And when you live as if God is within you, you step out of the endless loop of seeking and into the still, powerful place of being. You stop performing spirituality and start radiating it effortlessly. The truth is, what you're searching for is not out there. The peace, the power, the clarity, the love. It's already embedded in your being, but the noise of the world has layered itself over your awareness. You've been told to achieve your way into worth, to work your way into purpose, to hustle your way into belonging. And all the while the divine presence within you waits, not demanding, not punishing, but patiently inviting you to remember. It's not waiting for you to improve, it's waiting for you to wake up. Living as if God is within you means living from a place of deep inner alignment, not from external pressure. It means recognizing that you do not need to wear masks to be accepted or shapeshift to be loved. It means walking into the world with the awareness that your value is not transactional, it is intrinsic. And in that realization, a calm confidence rises in you. A confidence not based on ego or appearance, but on truth. You realize you do not need to be anything other than what you already are. A sacred vessel of divine presence. This awareness doesn't make you passive. On the contrary, it empowers you to move with purpose and clarity. You stop reacting and start responding. You stop hesitating and start expressing. When God is within you, your choices reflect a deeper wisdom. Your actions are infused with a higher integrity. You no longer act out of fear or lack, but out of fullness. You give, speak, create, and serve not to be noticed, but because it's your nature to do so. And this inner clarity changes everything. Your relationships begin to evolve. You are no longer drawn to people who only value your surface. You begin to attract those who see you clearly, who meet you soul to soul, because you have stopped negotiating your light, stopped diluting your truth. You no longer shrink to fit into rooms that ask you to forget who you are. You stand taller, speak gentler, live freer. You're no longer trying to convince anyone of your worth. You embody it, and in doing so, you teach others how to do the same. When you live from this sacred center, your energy shifts. You stop chasing things that were never meant for you. You let go of roles you were never designed to play. You begin to notice the quiet rhythms of your soul again, the way peace feels, the way divine timing unfolds, the way synchronicities guide your steps. You become more present, more patient, more powerful. In the most grounded sense of the word, because your power no longer comes from trying to control life. It comes from trusting the life force flowing through you. You begin to find joy in the simple, beauty in the ordinary. You understand that holiness is not reserved for sacred spaces or religious rituals. It's in your morning breath, your silent prayers, your everyday decisions. You see how even the smallest acts, when done with love and awareness, are echoes of the divine. You become reverent, not just in prayer, but in presence. And that presence begins to touch everything you do. This is not the path of perfection. It is the path of alignment. It is the quiet, consistent choice to show up as if the divine is moving through you in every moment. And when you fall short, and you will, you don't spiral into shame. You remember who you are, and you return, because returning is part of the path. Falling is not failure when you know how to rise again from your center. And what a beautiful thing it is to become a home for the sacred, to live in such a way that others feel peace just by standing near you, to speak words that carry healing, to create from a place of overflow, to rest, not out of exhaustion, but from a deep trust that everything is unfolding just as it should. You begin to walk through life as a reminder, a living message that God is not separate or distant, but near, within, here. And it's not something you need to announce. You don't need to wear a label or explain your path. The light speaks for itself. People may not always understand you. They may question your calm. They may mistake your gentleness for weakness. Let them. You're not here to convince anyone. You're here to live truthfully. And that truth will radiate in ways that need no explanation. So as you continue on your path, remember this: you are not waiting to be chosen. You were chosen the moment you were created. You are not waiting to be filled. You are already full. You are not becoming holy. You are remembering your wholeness. And the more you live from that remembrance, the more your life becomes a beacon for others who are still searching outside for what has always been within. Live as if God is within you, not as a concept, but as a practice. Let your breath be a prayer. Let your steps be an offering. Let your presence be a sanctuary. Let your life be the proof not that God exists somewhere beyond, but that he lives in you now, always, unshakably. You are not separate. You are not waiting. You are not lost. You are the living evidence of divine presence on earth. Walk like it. Speak like it. Live like it.